What a Wild Spirit Brings, Chapter 15, by Lil. While the Kaldorcan troop left, Mitten Haldani had the servants start setting up the picnic where they were. Mitten closed the door to the carriage and touched the boy's forehead. She shook her head. I cannot heal him. We must take him to the Blues. I think he should be fine, but only if he can overcome the drugs he's been given. Withdrawal from such forbidden things can kill if it's embedded in the bloodstream strong enough. Light, I pray he'll be all right. He is so little, and that Rutbird is so grotesque. How could anyone rape a little boy? Shh! The carriage is not sound-resistant right now, friend. Oh, yes. He is falling asleep. That is probably the best thing for him. We will go have our picnic to keep up appearances and let him rest. All right? As you say, friend. So the ladies got out and started dining on sandwiches and salad. It was only a short time before the guards came galloping to them, shouting for the Haldani to come quickly. She rose, and they started telling her in a panic that their captain, Ridrick, had asked her to help because their liege was slain. All the servants started whispering about it even before the troop was out of sight. Lil wanted to get up and run after them, but she sat and waited for almost an hour until Mitten Haldani came riding back, Ridrick's horse riding next to hers. I wish we could make sense of how it happened. Will you return to your own land now? No, I will go to the college. Captains are never allowed to be part of the troop during another king's reign. Axlex will take the throne, and the country will probably be better for it. I will take the examination to be a White Guard. That is, if they let me, after this monumental failure. I'm sure the college will not refuse you a test just because you are obeying a Haldani. As you say, Mitten Haldani. Ah, child, it is getting late. I am afraid we shall have to picnic another day. I must return to the college immediately. It is all right. It was a lovely thought. I shall look forward to another day. Mitten smiled and told the servants to pack up and return. She entered the carriage with Lil, and once it was closed and moving, they checked on the boy. He was still sleeping. So? There is no trace of your Tindra. Lil laughed with relief. It was a success. It was a brilliant success, and I'm so glad you didn't turn around when I told you to. As am I, the Haldani said through a little laughter. This red Haldani has finally seen some combat. Lil leapt forward and hugged the Haldani. Mitten returned the embrace. They rode the whole way like that, and Lil couldn't stop grinning. As soon as they were back, Mitten left Lil, and Lil didn't see her again for 4 days. A Blue came to heal the boy, and Lil watched over him the first day. He vomited a bit and slept almost the whole time. The next day he acted as if his body ached and was weak, but he ate some broth and wanted to get up and walk around. Lil led him to the practice grounds, since it was near noon, and he sat and watched her train with daggers. He seemed to like to watch her. He sat silent and still, hunched over, clinging to a blanket, blonde, shaggy hair framing his giant eyes. But he was alert and adorable. For the first time, Lil wondered about her own little brother, and even felt a twinge. The boy wouldn't speak. The Blue had said trauma could cause that, but that he would start speaking again once he felt safe. He refused to be anywhere Lil wasn't, and would not be alone with anyone else, even the kindly Blue. He seemed to like the garden, would pick flowers and slowly pick them apart, petal by petal. After 4 days of training and reading him stories in the garden, it was here that Lil finally saw Mitten again. As soon as she saw her, she felt a surge of joy. Mitten! Mitten Haldani laughed and caught her as she ran up to hug her. Hello, little brave one. You've never called me that before. Axlex is king. The Entha are returning to the dunes, and you saved everyone. Light, I'm just glad it worked. I am just glad you're you. You honor me. You deserve it. Oh, the boy, how good to see him up and about. He doesn't speak yet, though. He has become attached to me. That doesn't surprise me. I am so proud of you, Lil. I'm so proud to know you, Mitten. I am so glad I know you as well. I love you. Lil almost bit her tongue. Did she really just blurt that? Light, help her. Mitten Haldani looked shocked and amused. I am flattered, but I have a man in Andrus, Lil. Oh. Mitten chuckled and hugged her again. Lil felt some tears running down her face. Her chest truly felt like it was about to burst, and she couldn't stand how good the woman smelled. I'm too old for you anyway, she whispered. Lil pulled her head back and smiled at her and said, I know. I do love you. Mitten smiled back and said, I know. I love you too, while brushing the tears away from her cheeks and kissing them. They stood smiling and holding each other for a little bit. Then Mitten reached down and gently hugged the boy. To Lil's shock, he let her. He must remember that she was the one who had rescued him. The Haldani seemed touched by his trust of her. He held her hand with his tiny fingers, and she walked out of the garden with him. Lil was so happy to see him trusting another person. Lil picked up a wreath of flowers she had been making. As she rose, she saw Demeen walking toward her, her eyes piercing. Lil wanted to run, but stood her ground in defiance of the tumult of emotion for this girl. So, you're chasing the Haldani now. What do you care what I'm doing? Tameen sniffed and said with disdain. You waste your time with seduction. Again, what do you care? The understudy sighed as if bored. You can't tell. If you can't tell that I don't care, then you are blind. Then why are you talking to me? Tameen walked up to her, glaring at her, almost face to face. Because I can. Because if I feel like talking, I do. If I feel like having something, I take it. I can. She looked like a queen eyeing a roach, and Lil was the roach. Her head was so high, her back so straight, everything about her was rigid and superior. Lil looked right back at her, an indomitable lioness. Tameen, I did not intend to lie to you. If you are this upset with me, then I have to assume that you really did care for me as much as I did you. Tameen snarled in a rough whisper. You cared for me? A devilish grin spread across Tameen's face. She shoved Lil back and slammed her body against Lil's. The ground under Lil grabbed her feet, and she couldn't move. She was pinned against a climbing tree, and Tameen was a viper coiling against her. There you go again. You seduce. I take. Tameen whispered through that dangerous grin, and then she kissed Lil hard, while ripping her clothes to shreds with claws made of air. Lil tried to struggle, but couldn't. The air around her was solid as iron. She tried to scream, but could hear only a muffled cry under her throat, like some invisible hand that was choking her neck. Mitten would come back. Mitten would save her. Tameen bit her, and her claws sank into Lil's flesh, tearing her, drawing blood while Tameen rubbed her body against hers. The breath was heavy. Lil could smell her, could taste her. Lil wanted to die. Tameen shoved a clawed finger into her and between her legs, and then a second. Blood drained from within and without. Tameen was getting deeper and harder, while Lil's attempts at screams got louder, but still were so quiet. She felt the pain drawing panic, the disbelief that Tameen was making her break inside, but something remained stubborn in her, and though she fought to scream over and over despite the agony, she refused tears. Tameen began to moan a little, her body jerking, her fingers shoving. Her moans became closer and closer. She pushed harder and harder until she suddenly seemed to be convulsing and stopped breathing. Lil focused on all the bright flowers around her, their every detail, yellow flowers. This couldn't be happening. The flowers had 6 petals. This was her friend. The flowers had 3 leaves. This was a nightmare. When the spasm stopped, she let out a long breath and fell against the girl she'd just raped. She rubbed slowly for a little while, and then she shoved off Lil and with a look of complete triumph turned and walked away. There was no reason given for the action. There was no remorse shown by the attacker. Lil's blood and pain meant nothing. When she was out of sight, the air around Lil released her, and she fell. The ground around her feet crumbling slowly, almost breaking her ankles. She didn't care. Tameen was gone, and she started bawling. She was found a few hours later in a fetal position, still bleeding, still weeping, by someone. Someone carried her away. Something touched her head and healed her. Someone was saying something. She didn't care. She couldn't see or think. She rejoiced at the darkness that consumed her.